Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato, and I tried my best to get out a big old welcome back as I'm dealing with what is turning into, Nick, the longest stomach virus / food poisoning of my life. I'm not entirely sure what's going down with my stomach area these days, but I'm gonna not go too much further information in this because I've already provided way too much information for the audience. Let me just say this: I got back from Vegas and I haven't dealt with worse situation down there ever. I don't know if it's food poisoning yet or a stomach virus. I'm going to the doctor finally today. I have to at this point. But my God, what a wild way to end my Vegas trip. And let me say something to you about the Vegas trip.
Okay.
Vegas, I go every year for summer league with my friends and we gamble. We go out to awesome meals, awesome dinners. I had some incredible meals. I got a list of restaurants now for people to go to for both lunch and dinner. We go off strip for every meal. We plan out every meal and we hit some of the best spots.
Did you go to Bazaar Meats?
No, I never even heard of that one. Maybe that's a next year thing. We
good.
did go to Esther's Kitchen, which I've been waiting to go to and was amazing for one of the dinners. Went to a new place, Gayu Plus, for Japanese sando sandwiches. I don't know if you've ever had those, Nick. They're on the milk bread with like steak, chicken katsu, eggs. So freaking good for lunch. We went there. Obviously, we hit up Tacos El Gordo. We hit that every year. That's some of the best tacos in Vegas. But I'll say this about Vegas. They've really turned it into, Nick, for a gambler like me. And shout out to, Vegas. I stayed at Aria. It was great. They comped my whole experience because I gamble a lot there. And I play the table.
They comp your whole experience.
Yeah, because I play enough.
Wow.
That's the problem. I lose enough to them. They've really found a way on the strip, and I'm sure listeners who listen, and we'll just leave it at this. I won't go too much more into the experience. They found a way on the strip to really make it as player unfriendly as possible in those casinos, as player unfriendly. Super high mins, blackjack 6-5 payouts everywhere now. I mean, like, you can't even play a $50 game and get a 3-2 payout on blackjack. You have to go to the high roller room, is what they told me, to get a 3-2 payout. I mean, come on, just be fair about this. Craps tables, they're taking little edges here. They're giving worse odds on stupid little things. The roulette has a 000 now. Like, just every little thing they can do to grind you down, and it's so unnecessary. And it's no surprise to me, Nick. And yeah, it was a hot weekend, so maybe that was the reason. But I've been there for that same weekend every year, and we'll end it on this. It's no surprise to me that when I was walking the strip, that was the least crowded I've ever seen the strip in Vegas. And you can look it up online. Tourism in Vegas is way down, and it's because these casinos have turned over. And my theory, Nick, is the moment, if you look at the trends, the moment these casinos went to MGM properties and Caesar, whatever the Caesar properties is, I don't know what the Caesars and all those are. The minute they went away from the mob, it all went downhill. This was better run by the mob, Vegas, legitimately better run, because the mob, no, it's not a joke. The mob would give you experiences. If you lost a big chunk of change in Vegas at their casino at the mob, they comp you their room. They give you free buffet. They give you all this stuff because they didn't have to put it. Now they have to put it into a computer, and you have to have an average bet size of blah, blah, blah. And you have to play for X amount of hours, and it's all like by a computer. The mob better ran Vegas. That's my theory, and I'm sticking by it.
I'm not denying that. Like, I don't know anything about this subject matter. I just think it's freaking hilarious that you just did the Dave Gettleman. You got to put it in a computer.
Put it in a computer.
That's what put it in a computer.
I had a horrible loss a couple years ago in Vegas. I went to see a host, and he's like, "Well, technically, your bet size wasn't big enough, and your hours played." I'm like, "Dude, just give me something, man. Just
shut up, nerd.
Just take the resort fees off at least, for God's sake." But you know what? It is what it is. You get yourself when into Vegas. It still has awesome things. Sadly, this year I couldn't go to the Sphere because Backstreet Boys were playing. What a horrific! I couldn't think of a worst possible band.
Boys?
Yes, every year we said we're going to go to the Sphere for a concert. The Eagles played. I missed them. They weren't there this weekend.
Dude, they got to be in their 50s, right?
Dead and Co. played. Yeah, they did a reunion tour. The Backstreet Boys.
Okay.
The Sphere is the greatest concert experience in life, but I couldn't think of a worse possible band to be playing for me, at least that weekend, than the Backstreet Boys. So
I guess they're back. All right.
Yeah. It's honestly, I like that. It's honestly not a great Vegas experience this year. And it came home with food poisoning. So it is what it is. And I blame I think I'm pinpointing it to a acai bowl. Is that what it's called? Acai. I know you like those. Acai bowl that I had at Aria from Prest. I believe that's the reason I got.
What would be in the acai bowl that could?
I think it was like
these type of symptoms.
Whatever that acai crap is at the bottom of the bowl, I think that was off or something. Because I can't understand where else this would have came from. The berries, yeah. I don't know what else this would have came. The acai berries. Because I don't think it was from Esther's. No one else got sick from the dinner I had, and it was from the last night in Vegas.
Well, you have some issues with dairy products, right?
I have issues with dairy products at times, but this was legit food poisoning. Like I'll have dairy and be fine. Like
Yeah.
I eat dairy all the time because it's too good not to eat, and I deal with the issues the next
I
day. But
I can't wait to see the comments being like, I love hearing about Dan's issues in
5 minutes,
Vegas
Dan's
and the
issues with the
mob
food
and Dave
poisoning.
Gettleman. No.
The mob stuff is interesting, and I know people will
Yeah.
agree with me that the strip has gotten very player unfriendly at those casinos. But anyway, let's talk Giants football. That's what we're here to do today. Please just do me a favor. If you didn't like that, just quickly hit the skip button. You can get forward to this point. And we're talking Giants football. Today we're talking training camp on the way. Training camp on the way.
Dude, I can't wait, baby. Let's go. Here we are. We're right around the corner.
Practices right around the corner. Today, we're going to talk about things that we're excited to see in camp. I want to talk about the number one thing because it was something I discussed yesterday, and we're going to go in all different kind of order with Jacob Gibbs on our Beyond the Box Score show. Shout out if you want deep data analytics and film analysis and how it impacts fantasy football. Check out Beyond the Box Score at CBS Sports. And you can find it on the Fantasy Football Today YouTube page. But what we talked about is Jacob's like, dude, all the last month, all I've seen you do is hype up Tyrone Tracy. What happened to Cam Scadaboo? He was our guy, and he was Jacob and I guard. Jacob loved his tape before he got drafted. More importantly, loved his analytics. I mean, Jacob went over them in depth. No running back in college football last year forced more missed tackles than Cam Scadaboo, except for Ashton Jenney. He was in the Ashton Jenney tier of forced missed tackle rate and yards after contact per attempt. All the analytics that really led Jacob to loving Tyrone Tracy last year, Scadaboo was even better than him. And so he's like, what is this? Why are you hyping up Tracy so much? So what am I looking forward to, Nick? I want to see how this battle plays out. Does Scadaboo have an actual chance to take over? Are we going to have mostly Tracy running the RB1 role?
I think Scadaboo will work into that. I think Singletary will too. Again, we said this on previous episodes. I think it's going to be a hot hand approach within the three backs, more so led by Tyrone Tracy, and they're going to slowly work in Scadaboo. But the interesting thing about this is all three of these guys, they're not the most secure with the football. Now, I don't want to say that necessarily about Tracy because it was one season last year. It was just rookie year, but it was bad, man. Fumbling on the goal line, like really inexcusable behavior for a running back. You know, that really grinds the gears of Brian Daboll. And I wanted to make one more point, and I made this back during the draft when the Giants selected Cam Scadaboo, because you brought up his missed tackles. Yeah. Cam Scadaboo was like one of 4 running backs since Pro Football Focus has calculated missed tackles forced that has over 100 missed tackles forced.
Wow.
Like he had, I think, as much or just as much or maybe just a little bit less than Bijan Robinson a few years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's like Ashton Jenney who killed it. Like, it's just insane. He had like 147. Wow. And I'm pulling these numbers out of my rear end. These are from months ago, but it was like that much more.
It's in that range.
Yeah, where Scadaboo had, I think, like 104. And Bijan was like 100 around that too. Maybe he was even like 101. He was around that. And then I think there was one more. It might have just been them 3. I'm trying to think if there was another running back who even touched that number. But that's the caliber.
Right.
That Cam Scadaboo is. Now, he had a lot of carries, he had a lot of opportunities. He was used in space a lot as well as a receiver, and those helped him. But you can't really just throw that statistic out the window. This is somebody who is very good in confined spaces, runs very low to the ground, has great contact balance, which also helps his missed tackles forced rate. So if all of that translates from what we saw at Arizona State to the NFL, why would he not be on the football field? We might see more pony personnel packages. And these are things that we can glean from training camp, right? If we see Scadaboo and trades, like we're going to be reporting that. My boots should be on the deck at that time, waiting on my credentials, right? And I'll be reporting like,
credentials.
Yeah, pony packages, baby. We might be seeing that, dude. And if they are pony packages, I do wonder what the Giants are going to do with the other skilled position players. Like, do you just roll out Theo Johnson and then put like Wandale and Malik and Darius? But there's a lot of different combinations that are, I would say, favorable. They're good combinations, much better than the combinations the Giants have had in the past, because the Giants actually have competent skill position players now on this team with a quarterback who can hopefully get them the football.
That's a great point. And just for those who are newer to the podcast, we've gone over this on film a bunch, but pony packages 2 running backs on the field. We saw this a bunch with Breida and Barkley back in the day, early Giants, Dable, Kafka days. And remember, Kafka is most likely returning as the play caller this year. So I think we're more likely to see more of the offense we saw 2 years ago than the offense we saw last year.
But it's interesting though, not to cut you off, because I want to see how Kafka calls an offense with Russell Wilson, because that's a completely different situation than Daniel Jones. And Kafka is a quality NFL mind and an adaptive NFL mind. At least I think so. Just listening to him speak and knowing that he's a highly intelligent individual, I'm imagining the offense is probably going to be a lot different from what we saw from 2022. Now, there'll still be some core concepts from a passing perspective, but the strengths of Russell Wilson is just completely different than the strengths of Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I mean, last year I saw a stat on this yesterday. So it was crazy to see. And the charting is interesting. We went over this in our quarterback rankings episode. And if we ever want to go over that for fun on this pod, it could be worth it. But we're getting into training camp. I think we're past that point. But Patrick Mahomes was really bad from a ball placement standpoint last year. The stat by the numbers, at least. We went over this, Jacob and I should say, on Beyond the Box Score. But I saw the numbers, and he was one of the least accurate passers, 20 plus yards. Daniel Jones was the fifth least accurate passer, 20 plus yards last year, 30 something percent. Russell Wilson, on the flip side of that, had 24 big time throws, just 2 turnover worthy throws on passes that went beyond 10 air yards last year. So essentially the total opposite of what Jones was last year. Yeah. And now Jones was better earlier in his career at deep passing. That was the worst we ever saw it. But that's such a different, and obviously in 2022, when Kafka called the plays, Jones wasn't much better. You went over the stats. We've gone over the stats. We were dead last in explosive pass rate. So it's just like an interesting concept. Kafka, as a play caller, goes from one year, it's 2022. He has Jones, one of the 2 or 3 worst deep ball passers in the NFL. Then next year, he has Russell Wilson, one of the 2 or 3, at least from efficiency standpoint, best. I wouldn't call him that. So let's say he's one of the 10.
Yeah, I think that's
a very stark contrast.
Yeah, it's a stark contrast. And with Russell Wilson, I mean, look, the Giants have been trying to get more explosive. This is something that I think Joe Shane really put into effect after the 2022 season when they had success and they won the playoff game. They're like, oh, well, we need to get Daniel Jones a better weapon and be more explosive as an offense because we're not passing the football. Let's go out and trade for Darren Waller. And I don't knock that move. I actually think that was a smart move, going out and getting Darren Waller for the position that the Giants found themselves in once they extended and gave Daniel Jones another contract and they brought back Saquon Barkley. You need to get a pass catcher. And then they did it the next year with Malik Neighbors. They've been trying to get, and they've been bringing back Darius Slayton slowly but surely all this time, right? So I think the Giants are going to come out and they're going to have a much more deep passing oriented mind. If we go back to last training camp, I remember being boots on the deck and people were always talking about, they're throwing the ball deep. Like that was a big narrative around the 2024 training camp. Oh, they're targeting deep. And that might
work too.
Yeah, and they were, but that just didn't translate in the game whatsoever once the bullets were flying and the quarterback could get hit. Now with Russ, I think we're going to see those deep passing concepts, but I think that can actually translate. The thing with Russell Wilson is, can you avoid pressure? Can this offensive line hold up? It's a lot of the aspects of football that we discussed with Warren Sharp. If Russell Wilson can be kept clean, then I think this offense can be respectable offense, which is something we have not had since freaking Eli Manning was our quarterback. Because I wouldn't even say it was respectable really in 2020. Like, I mean, it was respectable in 2022, but it was a lot of it was respectable because we had a good
respectable offense.
It was respectable because, in my opinion, because we had a play caller who was just, I would say, calling plays at like a top 10 play calling rate in 2022, maximizing the offense. You had Saquon Barkley, but the Giants weren't striking fear into defensive coordinator. That has never been the case. And I'm not suggesting that's going to be the case now, but as long as it's just like, hey, we can't just crowd the line. Like, we got to play some too high shells. Like, that's all I'm looking for. And I think Russ can force that.
I think that's a good point. Because I think you just nailed that so perfectly. Like 2022, no defense was worried about us. No DC was worried, but Kafka would catch him off guard a lot. And he would disguise a lot of run plays as pass plays and pass plays as run plays, use a lot of boot action and just get these 2-on-1s on the outside with Jones. He can either run or flip the ball out to a tight end. And it's like, oh, there was 12 yards. Good job, buddy. It's like like a magician, creating like 10, 15-yard chunks out of really nothing. But it's not like, and I'll say this, Nick, as far as what you said, I will remain a bit more skeptical. And I only say that because I watched so much quarterback tape the last 2 weeks to do that quarterback episode with Jacob. And for those who want to watch quarterback tape, Jacob literally put up a cut up of every single 1 to 9, 10, 1 to 9, or 5 to 9, 10 to 19, and 20 plus throw from every quarterback. Play after play cut up on his Twitter page. You can go find all this and all their cut ups of plays versus pressure. It's kind of crazy. You can just go watch all 22 for free on Jacob Gibbs' page. I don't know when they're going to shut him down, but they haven't shut him down yet. But from watching all that, like, I will say this with regard to your comment, watching Burrow, that's what I think is the true barometer of defenses are adjusting to play him, because Burrow's in the gun most of the time. spread, and you really see how defenses face it. I don't think we're going to get too much of Russ in the gun, 11 personnel spread for a long period of time where it's like, all right, defenses are playing us from the top down because we're a pass first type of team that's like ripping it to all levels. I think we're more going to be the team that's like similar to 2022, a lot of run action based stuff with Russ, and then he'll just hit you over the top, which is fine. And I don't think defenses are necessarily then, in my mind, going to adjust to that as much as we're just going to hit more of those plays. Because like you said, like training camp last year, it's like we made a big effort to throw the ball deep, and it was, we didn't have any hitting and live action. So it was like, it was working. It wasn't always working. Remember the throwback from Jones to Neighbors where he was like 7-yard separation, Flott catches up to a floating horrible ball and just tips it away. Like that's the type of shit that's going to actually be out there from Russ
and
on
then
a line.
Like, yeah. And then Flott's like, no, it's like,
like
Cordell, like you were running in the opposite direction. You had no idea what was going on, buddy. All right.
You got beat by Neighbors by 5 yards. You just got bailed out by this terrible quarterback who can't get the ball out there. But Russ can get it out there. And that's the difference on those plays that are available, I think, for Kafka. Maybe it's not that he'll feel more confident in calling them. It's just that they'll be made more by the quarterback. And that could be all the difference. We'll see. Back on the Scatterboo thing, I want to say this. Based on what you said, all the numbers and all the film we watched, he was really great at creating yards before and after contact. Before contact was where I really think he was elite. You talked about it with the forced missed tackle rate. I also think it's with the jump cuts and the vision. I do think there is a world where he's so good. I'm not kidding. Where he's so, because he was that in college, where he's so good that he does end up getting the RB1 role that Tracy got last year, because we've seen that with Dable throughout his 10 years as a coach. And that's something that also interests me. Could that happen in camp?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Look, we all love to work out. The summer's coming around. You want to look good in your bathing suit. But in order to enhance your workout, you want to go and use MitoPure from Timeline. This is a great product. When I started using it, it makes me feel stronger, gives me more energy. I recover quicker. I'm in my 30s. I still have the energy to work out. And if you want that energy, you really should give Timeline's MitoPure a shot and work it into your routine. This, the great year of 2025, is your year to be the best, most energized, most revitalized you. MitoPure promotes cellular renewal and mitochondrial health to address common signs of aging at the root. MitoPure is the research-backed innovation that unlocks your fullest potential. Timeline is offering 10% off your order of MitoPure right now. So go to timeline.com/banter. It's timeline.com/banter. That's Timeline. Certainly, Dan. There's a world where that can happen with Cam Scatterboo. It's just how is it going to manifest? And dude, this is a very physical position. We know there are a bunch of injuries. Like there are so many variables that go into this. Like last season, Devin Singletary, start of the year, great. And we were like, oh, Devin Singletary, when are we going to see Tyrone Tracy? And then Tyrone Tracy finished the year and he proved himself, and it was all well and good. It's just now we have all of these options. I don't know if we're going to be able to figure out if Cam Scatterboo is going to take the number one role in training camp, right? Like that's going to be tough to glean, but I just want to see his usage with the number one offense, independent of Tyrone Tracy and with Tyrone Tracy in the pony packages that we discussed a little bit earlier. But on the point that we were talking about with Russell Wilson and the too high defenses and all of that, I think you made a lot of great points. I think the presence of Malik Neighbors and just that overall skill set may lead to those more too high looks, though, which are going to open up a lot of the other parts of this offense. And if the defenses are in too high looks more, that's going to give more favorable boxes to the New York Giants. We actually might see some even boxes and some, maybe plus one, plus one boxes, which is crazy. Like that's going to.
Would you explain real quick just what that means, just for new listeners?
Yeah. So in the tackle box, right? Like you have your defensive line, you have your linebackers, and they're all within the frame of where the offensive tackles are. If the offense is in an even situation, that means the math is even. There's enough blockers to match the defensive players. If the offense is, if they have +1, it's usually, the defense has +1 on the box, but like if the offense has an extra blocker, then the defense has, that means there's a defender deep, right? And that means there's probably like a cover 4 situation, some kind of shell like that, could be cover 6, whatever. And then one of those safeties is really cheating down to the box, but they're doing that to get ahead of the passing attack. This is defenses that you see against the Chiefs, against the Bills, against teams that are prolific and explosive as with throwing the football deep and targeting in the deep portions of the field. With the New York Giants, we haven't really seen that because we've had Daniel Jones as our quarterback. So a lot of teams have been pressed up to the line of scrimmage where the Giants, they never have an advantage from a blocking standpoint, right? Like, so they're always at a disadvantage. There's always somebody lurking very close to the box to fit and to fill and to attack. And then the offensive line is in a position where somebody has to block, like a wide receiver has to reach to block somebody who they're probably not really capable of blocking anyways. And then the play gets blown up and we're like, oh, why is Saquon Barkley getting tackled behind the line of scrimmage? He sucks. It's like, no, the guy has to, first off, he has to overcome crappy blocking. And secondly, he has to evade an extra guy basically because the defense has no respect for the Giants offense's ability to attack them vertically. With Russell Wilson, the hope, and Malik Neighbors, is that they will have enough success to at least command respect to where the Giants will have some favorable situations to allow Cam Skattebo and Tyrone Tracy Jr. and Devin Singletary to do their thing with a rock in their hands.
I think it's a great point because I think just watching Justin Jefferson, and we're getting very, very close. If it won't happen this year, I think it happens next, but I think it will happen this year to a point where defenses will play Malik Neighbors the way they play Justin Jefferson are very similar. You see a constant barrage of cloud coverage and just different ways to kind of take him out of the game. And that may start happening with Neighbors, to be honest. If you look at this Giants team right now, if you're an opposing defensive coordinator, no more Saquon Barkley, you're probably thinking, here's my game plan. If you're the Belichickian mindset, your game plan is take away Neighbors. That's first and foremost. So now you're allocating 2 defenders to take him away. That should open up the run game. We've said that in the past. I still don't think a lot of that is dependent on the run blocking getting a lot better and more content, playing more with more continuity. We saw moments of it at times last year, even just going back over Tracy tape when I did my cut up of him that I posted a few days ago. There were good moments in the run blocking where it's like, this looks good against the Steelers. They were like, okay, they're blocking together. Like, there were moments where they sprung big plays. It's just the consistency, I think, still kind of isn't there. Maybe playing together more will help. Maybe having Evan Neal on the interior will help. I honestly believe it would, to have that type of body and that type of people mover in there. We'll see what happens on that front, with regards to all of that. But it should, in theory, open up opportunities. And we'll see what happens. I'm very interested to see the schematics of this Giants offense with Russell Wilson and just getting rid of Daniel Jones, getting him out of the mix. I think it could just do so much for how the Giants play.
Absolutely. And moving on to, I kind of want to focus on the tight end position real quick. I just want to know what Daniel Bellinger's role. This is his last year under contract. It seems like the New York Giants haven't been eager to play him since Theo Johnson has come in, right? Like, it seems like Daniel Bellinger is I don't want to say an afterthought, but he had so much positive momentum after his rookie season. And I would argue rightfully so, that now he's much more, he's a second fiddle to Theo Johnson, and Chris Manhertz has his own role. So I want to know what Daniel Bellinger's role is going to be. And I also want to know or see what Thomas Fidone and Greg Dulcich do as well. Because I'm not writing those guys off, because we know the Giants with their affinity for Lawrence Cager type of wide receivers or tight ends, former wide receivers. I think Dulcich and Fidone both fit that mold. So I'm wondering how they're going to be used and if there could possibly be a roster spot for players like that.
It's going to be really interesting to see how this tight end position shakes out. I think we both kind of agree that Bellinger's been really, I don't want to blame the Giants for this, but in some ways I do, just underutilized and underappreciated, to be quite honest, based on what we've seen on the tape. Now, that can happen sometimes within the structure of a roster, especially the structure of a roster and a team that just isn't good and they're not winning a lot. There's not a lot of opportunities for him to make these big game-changing plays that would change narratives, right? Like, if we were a good team, Bellinger's in on a red zone play, we can win a game to go to 9-6 or whatever it may be, and he catches that 8-yard touchdown. It's such a different feel for like where he's at, because that's like a player that makes big plays on a big team that can win games. When we're this type of team, it just seems, or when we've been this type of team, it seems different. But you're right in the sense of like, A, they haven't shown signs of loving him, and B, all we've seen from Fidone so far since he's been drafted is good things. Like Travis Kelce, I don't know if you saw this, gave him a lot of props based on, and I love what he said. He's like, the way he moves is different. And that's all, what made Kelce one of the best tight ends, if not the best tight end of all time. I don't personally believe he is. I would always give that to Gronk and
Mike Ditka.
Not Tony G. Yeah, my best tight ends are always the two-way tight ends. I think they're way more valuable than the one-way tight ends like Kelce. No offense to Kelce. And I know I've had this argument with a lot of people, Kelce versus Gronk. I even had the argument with a friend. I might take Kittle over Kelsey, to be quite frank, because I think Kittle's such a good blocker. And to me, when you're a two-way player at that position, it's just so much more valuable. But with that said, like what made Kelsey such a good receiving tight end was his movement skills. It wasn't really much else. He's not the fastest runner. He's not like this like insane blocker. He's just really loose and he moves really well and gets open.
And he's smart too. He understands how to uncover, man. He
right
in the middle of the field. He understands. Oh, you're there. Okay, I'm going to go here. Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
But it's not just that he's smart, because we've seen plenty of smart tight ends that are like decent pass catchers. It's that he also can move really well laterally. And I think if Fedone has that, he could be intriguing for this Giants coach staff. They've been looking to find a move tight end for a while, from trotting Lawrence Cager out there to all the different things they've done. And that could be a role in this offense. So I'm intrigued by that as well. But more importantly, I want to see Theo in year 2.
Yeah, man.
Because I'm going to do a cut up of him next week. There were some moments on his tape last year where it's just like, whew, the Cowboys game right before the injury, like that last catch he had, dude, where he's leaping defenders and then bashing into another defender. I'm like, that's a beast out there. That's an athlete out there at that position. And that's a different level athlete. And I'm not saying he's the 99th percentile athlete that compared to Jimmy Graham from a relative athletic score standpoint. We know he's not the next Jimmy Graham, but like he's something out there. And now year 2, play faster, not think as much. All that could come into play for Theo.
Absolutely. I'm glad that he's healthy now with the foot injury that he suffered. And dude, it's the blocking aspect. Like Theo Johnson's 270 pounds.
Right.
That's massive.
He's got the frame.
He's 6'5", 270. And last year he had no idea what the hell he was doing. And the Giants wanted to play him. They wanted to get him as many reps as possible. That's how much faith they have in Theo Johnson. I believe John Schmelk, when he came on our podcast after the draft, said that Theo Johnson is one player that not a lot of fans are talking about, that they love in the building. I completely understand that from his usage last year, his development last year, and his potential. Right. And I think all of those things, like if he can put it together, and I hope he was able to stay in shape and work out through his rehab with the foot injury that he suffered towards the end of the season last year. But bro, if he can get out there and he can start scratching his potential, this guy could be like a legit, like very good tight end.
Could be. And also somebody who I would say, if you're punting on tight end in your fantasy football drafts, I would not mind taking him late. I think he could be a really interesting player late in your fantasy football drafts. Just something to keep in mind from that standpoint. Last thing, let's talk O-line before we wrap up. There's so much intrigue when it comes to the O-line. I think at least going into training camp.
Got to talk about wide receivers too, but yeah.
Yeah, well, okay. Sorry, we skipped wide receivers. We'll get into that as well. But when it comes to the O-line, there's so much intrigue there because, yes, there's a lot of returning starters, but there's also that big, interesting question mark when it comes to Evan Neal and what role he has going to have for this 2025 team. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe he's just loses the battle to GVR. They don't want to move Schmidt off, JMS off the center position, and they just say, all right, we just roll back into it. Or maybe he looks so good at guard in camp that they have to make a decision on what they want to do because they know what he can provide for the run game if he's in that lineup. And I'll tell you what, Nick, from an upside standpoint, I'm really hoping it's option 2 because I saw what the line looks like already with GVR and Runyon and JMS. It's all right, but it's so capped from a run game standpoint. It's just going to be capped. Those 3 are not moving people in the run game. But Neal can move people in the run game.
Yes, yeah. And Evan Neal, I mean, dude, he's 6'8", like 350 pounds. I would like my ideal offensive line is to have Evan Neal start at right guard. It's just, can he? And is he mentally there to be able to understand all the protections and everything that comes with playing at that position after playing offensive tackle and struggling mightily at offensive tackle throughout the first 4 years of his career, 3 years of his career, whatever it's been, right? So I would love to see Evan Neal get him the right guard. I know we're going to be talking about it at training camp. Like, oh, he's in there. He's first team. He got first team reps. I hope that actually results in him seeing the field on Sunday. And that is not a knock on Greg Van Roten at all. No. I would love to have Greg Van Roten to be that swing interior offensive lineman. He could play center if John Michael Schmidt sucks or he gets injured. I would absolutely love that. And then you have Greg Van Roten and Aaron Stinney as your 2 interior offensive linemen, swing interior offensive linemen. And I think that's quality stuff right there. Like that's depth. We haven't had depth in a while. And we haven't even mentioned names like Josh Azudu and guys like that who are just kind of like riding pine at this point, right? That was just a swing and a miss of a draft pick. And then you have the tackles with Stone Forsythe and James Hudson III. Those are 2 guys who are not going to, and Marcus Bowe, who are not going to be like, this is a deep offensive line. Now, I'm not saying those guys are overly talented because I don't believe that they are, but they are further along in their development and more competent than a lot of the backups the New York Giants have had on their offensive line, i.e. Josh Azudu and some of the guys who are still here for a very long time. And then you have the Jake Kubis question too. Jake Kubis is a guy who I think had good preseason film, quality college film, and the Giants, he's another one I think that Schmelk, I think this was last year, said that the Giants were high on, and then he was able to stay on the Giants roster under the radar for a while. That's another name that I want to kind of throw out there for depth. The Giants, once in freaking a decade, I think they actually have some depth on their offensive line. It's just how good is the overall offensive line in general. That I think remains to be seen.
You broke this down exactly as I see it. I think the depth I feel more confident in, like you said, you agree with that. The starters is where I feel less confident. And it's interesting because I actually feel really confident in our tackle starters. Yeah, I got to be honest. Like, I really like Illuminor there, and I'm not the guy who's like, Andrew Thomas, he might not start the thing. Oh, God, what's going to happen? He's injured every year. I just, you know how I am with injuries. I'm not a big believer that they're injury-prone players. Some are, I guess, but, like, I don't want to bilk him into that group just yet without, like, more of a sample size of him.
Honestly, when was so other than last year, Jermaine Illuminor kicked around a bunch of different spots, right?
Yeah.
When was the last time the Giants had this on paper, and I would even say beyond paper, this reliable of a tackle tandem?
Without us knowing what Illuminor was last year and only knowing this year what he was based on last year, I would say that it certainly wasn't last year. It probably would have to go all the way back to 2011. To be honest,
that's my point. Like I think Andrew Thomas and Jermaine Illuminor, that's not just like I think that is a well above average starting tackle tandem.
Yes,
like arguably a top 10 tackle tandem in the National Football League.
Yeah, if you looked across the NFL, it might just be, when healthy, it might just be that. Yeah. Now that is important to note. While also, I wanted to get to my second part. I don't really love this interior group. I'll be honest with you. Yeah. We signed Runyon out of desperation, and he's okay at times. But as I've gone back and watched through some of this Tracy stuff, Nick, I just think the Runyon thing is like, he's like like I was thinking when you were talking before, like, oh, if Evan Neal stands out in camp, I'm open to the idea because we've only talked about Evan Neal plays well. We stick him at right guard, and we put, maybe we put GVR over JMS. I'm open to the idea of like GVR over Runyon. Like they won't do it because they paid Runyon so much and he's consistent enough, I guess. But like, I'm not sold on Runyon. I'm not sold on really anyone on the interior, to be quite honest. Any of the three guys that are most likely going to be starting, GVR, JMS, and Runyon. And to me, that is the source of most concern across the board for me on offense. I'm more concerned about our interior offensive line than our tackles that we just went over, than our quarterback, than our running backs, than our receivers, than our tight ends. Maybe not tight ends, but I honestly am more concerned about the interior offensive line than the tight ends. I don't have that much faith that Runyon's going to have a late career breakout. I think he's like some okay guy we signed from the Packers that is decent at times. JMS, who knows? Like, we're hoping for the best there, but it hasn't been pretty. And GVR is a late career guy that like had like to the point where we even said ourselves, like, shit, is GVR the best interior offensive lineman on some of these film reviews we've done? And the answer was yes. It's not a great sign.
No, it's not a great sign at all. Yeah. And I would say my biggest question mark. Now, look, the quarterback position, Russell Wilson, Jackson Dart, there's a lot of questions there, but that's the quarterback. I think that's a unique situation. So I'm going to put that aside. One of the biggest question marks I have with this entire Giants offense is the interior offensive line. Yeah. Because I do not get, I'm not confident in any of them. Yeah. I think John Runyon last year I think if I were to be generous, I would say he's an average starter. And I think that's me being very generous. Agreed. I think he might have been a slightly below average starter. Greg Van Roten, he might have been an average starter. Yeah. John Michael Schmitz, a pretty below average starter last year. So like, that's the reality that we're talking about. Now, if Andrew Thomas is healthy the whole season and the offensive line is healthy the whole season and they all play together, can they all improve? Yes, I do think there's a lot of merit to that argument, but none of those guys that I just named, none of them have the potential, like we said, of Evan Neal. None of them are these road grading. I'm going to uproot this 310-pound defensive tackle and pay. None of those guys are that. They got to rely on their intelligence, their angles, their smarts, their footwork, a lot of those aspects of the game. And sometimes I do kind of just want a brute dude who can move. Yeah. So if Evan Neal, just to circle it back to him, if he can work on his footwork and the mental side of things, then there's no doubt in my mind that this guy has so much more upside than guys like John Runyon and Greg Van Roten. But to your earlier point, the Giants aren't going to bench John Runyon for GVR and probably not Evan Neal at this point, since Neal is going to be not a Giant after this season.
Correct. Well, he might still have a chance to make if he has a great year at guard.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a stretch. Yeah.
It is a stretch.
I hope that I get egg on my face for this. I would love to see Evan Neal actually have a great season, and then like we salvage his career and he comes back on a small contract. That'd be awesome. But
we need those types of hits based on our draft capital we've expended in the hope that we can build this like Eagles type roster at some point. And that's obviously a pie in the sky, but like that's what's the type of stuff that has to hit. But even to what you said, and I completely agree with you, I would be fine having an offensive line that's like just really good from a technique standpoint, but I just don't see the upside of Runyon as a mover. Or honestly, and I said this from his tape at Minnesota, I never really saw it, JMS as a mover. To me, those guys, even if they got to the peak of what they can be from a technique and a movement standpoint, they're still just not that athletic. Like it's not Joe Tippmann at center. Like that was, if you're going the other route of if you want to go the power with Neal or the athleticism, then you need to get guys like Joe Tippmann, not guys like
Ryan Ramczyk, right?
Ryan Ramczyk, unfortunately, he's retired because he had back issues.
Name the Badger offensive lineman.
Even the guys that were just like movers that couldn't, movers of people that didn't move that well. Havenstein turned himself into a big career from a late round pick. These are always, look, you got to draft Wisconsin backers and O-line, but not anymore with the O-line. But point being, like Tippmann was the debate. It was Schmitz versus Tippmann. And we didn't get that opportunity to ever see what the Giants would have done, but they would have taken JMS. We know that.
I think so, yeah.
It's fucking, our stupid offensive line coach loved the fact that he could call plays and our quarterback can't set protection. So it's like, we need somebody who can set protections, and let's get a 24-year-old center because this quarterback can't do anything when it comes to this pre-snap and post-snap. It's a crazy mindset to have someone in here to help our quarterback. How about this little brainiac move? Get a quarterback who can do this. So you don't have to rely on your center to fucking set the protections, for God's sake. Get a quarterback in there. Did you see Eli in the game we just went over, the Cowboys game? Did he need the center, O'Hara, to do anything for him? No. Eli was doing everything at the snap, every single play as a third-year player. That's what you need. And Russell Wilson, by the way, is going to be able to do that. Thank God. That was another thing. You were talking about the run game earlier with the boxes being lighter to make it. How about this? Good. Russell Wilson will do a much better job of understanding the defense and getting them into run plays where they do have an advantage, because that never happened. We didn't do anything from a pre to post snap that was smart at all as an offense ever. It felt like occasionally we did it, but very rarely. Point being, hopefully that will help the run game. But ultimately, I do believe it does come down to those interior offensive linemen.
And to turn the page on this, let's move to somebody who hopefully can be good at that position, and that is Jackson Dart. He's going to be a big talking point throughout training camp, right? So how many reps does he get with the first team? His first rep with the first team, if he throws an interception, or people are going to be freaking out, right? I just say let's cool our jets. This is like a 20 just turned 22-year-old kid. If he makes mistakes, just let him make mistakes. He has good plays. That's great as well. Take him in stride. Just slowly watch this kid progress and give him some time, because he's in an infrastructure right now where he's not forced to be thrust into combat, right? Like he has Russell Wilson and he has Jameis Winston in front of him. So let's just try to evaluate it with a cool heads in a judicious manner. So that's my take on Jackson Dart. Training.
I completely agree with you, and that's not going to be what anyone else to take. I mean, we're going to be, the excitement level is going to be insanely high. We're going to live and die with every pass. We know how this goes. Like, we've seen this before. We're Giants fans. We are starved for this, so we're going to be living and dying with every rep, and it is what it is. We're going to report on every rep. We're going to talk about, but Nick and I are going to try to have a more, like Nick just said, balanced viewpoint of what this means, because it is his first training camp, right? Wide receivers for me, again, like, we've gone over this all throughout the offseason, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But the wide receivers for me will be determined this season by the quarterback play. That's how I truly believe. I've seen enough out of Wandell. I've seen enough out of Slayton. I know what they are. I want to see what high it can be. But all of that is dependent on, can the ball get out on time? Can it get out thrown ahead of these receivers? And can they do their part to help these receivers do their part?
And another really important reality that we have to consider when it comes to the New York Giants entering the 2025 training camp, and we haven't been in this situation in a while, all three of these quarterbacks who are presumably going to make the roster, this is their first year with the team.
True.
When's the last time we've ever been in that situation?
Chemistry, right.
Well, it's no chemistry. It's just learning. They know the offense now from reading it and through going through, little practices, OTAs and mini camps, all this kind of shit. But now bullets are kind of flying, not really for the quarterbacks as much because they're not getting hit, but this is their first test. This is Jackson Dart's first test just in the NFL and with this. And he also had the two guys in front of him on the depth chart are also new to this offense and learning and working with this offensive line and these receivers. So it could be a bumpy road for the offense, especially when you have Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns and Abdul Carter on the other end.
True.
So I just want to lay that out as well. Like Tommy DeVito has a ton of value right now because Tommy DeVito is the only person who knows Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka's offense, who has actually taken reps within it. All the other quarterbacks on the roster who are more than likely going to make the team over Tommy DeVito have not. So that is something. Now, Winston and Russell Wilson are professionals, so that gives them a leg up on a player like Jackson Dart. But we should be level-headed about the offense heading into it because it could be a little rocky to begin it.
I think that's actually an excellent point. We probably should have led. I think it's the best and most important takeaway for the listeners right now that we could have even led the show with, but we got here at the end. It's going to be very defensive heavy the first few of these weeks of these practices. The defense is going to dominate the first team offense. They have more talent than the first team offense, and the first team offense doesn't know the system. So the quarterbacks running it don't know the system that well. Russ did his best, I'm sure, to pick it up, but he has no reps with these guys, and he's first year in Daboll's system. Same thing for Jameis, who might be operating as the 2, but even if it's Dart, he's operating as the 2 like he was in OTAs. Defense is going to dominate the offense a lot. It's going to be ugly. Now, the offense will do things. We've seen this in the past. The coaches will do things to make it easier for the offense and give them an advantage in practice. I'm sure the defense hates when this happens, by the way, Nick, when they unlevel the playing field to make things look better. And I'm sure like at times in the past, it's for a confidence boost for the offense. So it's not like every practice, just a devastating barrage of just player in the backfield. Because that's what's going to, I saw some of the reps, like the one Abdul Carter posted from mini camp or whatever. Russell Wilson had no chance on that play, right? It was a shotgun snap. By the time he caught the ball and like got into his drop, Carter had spun past the guard and gotten in there, and like the edges were collapsing in on him. So it's like that could happen a lot in camp.
It could. Yeah, it definitely could. Now, quickly, let's just talk on the wide receivers. I know we mentioned
lack of depth.
We mentioned, yes, it's really just a lack of depth that I wanted to bring up. Now, behind Jalen Hyatt, it's like, yeah, Ihmir Smith-Marsette's going to be a special teamer on the team. Bryce Ford Wheaton might be a special teamer. And then you have guys like Zach Pascal and Little Jordan Humphrey. They're probably competing for one spot if that spot's even available. But I want to bring those guys up because all of these undrafted guys, Daquan Felton, Juice Wells, who has experience with Jackson Dart from Ole Miss, Bo Collins, and Jordan Bly and Dalen Combry, all these players, like, could they steal a spot if they really ball out in training camp? That's one of those sub stories that I will be looking at because Neighbors, Slayton, Wandale, Hyatt, and Ihmir Smith-Marsette, I would say all 5 of those guys are safe. And there's probably one roster spot for the rest. Now, would the Giants value a guy like Pascal or Little Jordan Humphrey because their blocking ability, or could one of those players that I named provide enough blocking to get by while also being an asset as a receiver? I think that's another thing that we should be paying attention to.
That's a great point. And we know one thing is true from all our training camp experiences. Some wide receivers will stand out and be the talk of training camp. That's just how the position works. You make plays. It's going against air. There's no hitting. There's no pass rushes. The receivers have an advantage, and someone will stand out. And it'll be interesting to see how this plays out from a wide receiver versus tight end standpoint. Like, how many tight ends do they want to keep on the roster versus how many receivers? If Dulcich, for example, who has some skill set that we used to love. I mean, we liked his tape at college. Like, if he somehow finds health and he likes the system and it fits and it works well for him and he has some experience with Russ, whatever it may be, and he stands out in camp, now do they want to keep an extra tight end and get rid of a receiver on the roster and take it from there? All that will be interesting to me to see how many receivers, running backs, and tight ends they decide to keep on this roster. There may be a lack of depth at receiver, but there's certainly a lot of bodies at receiver. It's just a lack of depth from a name brand standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know, your top 3 are that's a solid trio. Your 11 personnel package is solid. Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, Wandale Robinson. That's respectable.
Yes, and maybe Hyatt. We'll see what happens with him.
Maybe.
All right, that was a lot on the offense. We're excited to see this all play out. There will be a lot more storylines that evolve in camp, I should say. So we're excited to get into that. Next week is the week, Nick. We finally get into some real content that we've been excited to talk about. So keep it locked and loaded. This dry summer is almost over. I myself will be locked and loaded, I hope, when it comes to the bathroom. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do another
dude.
All right. It's been wacky. It's been fun. Please hit the like button. Forgot to ask, and that is disappointing, but I'm not myself right now. I've been dealing with some bad stuff. So hit the like button, share, subscribe, do everything you can do to help us, and have a great rest of your week. We'll talk to you soon.